pentagram dedicated to Henry Foreman. In the years of the primal force and the dawn of terrestrial birth.
Well, welcome my friends. Alan Averill, Agitators Anonymous episode. I say it every week, but I don't know. Could be nearly 240. Nearly 240. Well, after last week's hit and miss episode about, well, was it really about politics? I don't know if it really was about politics. It was about something or other. Something or other. Old man shouts at clouds. Well, back in the 90s, we had a website, our old website, which was something of an enigma, I suppose, to us. None of us really understood how these things worked. We just about had email in the mid-90s, but we had a website, and I would send off various updates to the webmaster, and every now and again would check the website and go, oh wow, we have 45,904 views or something. I suppose it was a rather early and pretty primitive way to gauge the band's popularity. Of course, social media in the last 10-15 years has really done in for the idea of a website. In fact, that reminds me, I must go and actually check the Primordial website, the current Primordial website. It probably has a tour from 2002 or something on the cover. But a good friend of the band, Collie, to name him, sort of has become our unofficial archivist. One of those. And he sent me a tour diary, which I wrote for the website. Somehow he's ended up with all of the files for the website. And it's a tour diary from, I think, 1998. Maybe 1999, but I think 1998. One of the first tours, we did a couple of mini tours following this with Tyrfing and Hades Almighty of the great Again Shall Be record, which is one of the most pivotal pagan metal records of the early to mid 90s, might be 95. If you don't know it, Hades Again Shall Be, go and listen to that. What a mighty sounding record. We did a few 4 or 5, maybe 6-day tours with them and Tyrfing from Sweden. But this was a tour that was before that was kind of organised off our own back through our friend from back in the day, DBM, we shall name him, Dave Black Metal. And he was living in Portugal at the time. And I'm going to read out and comment on my tour diary. I haven't read it since 99, I guess. I suppose I should actually find out whether it was in 98 or 99. Let me go and do that while you get the ad read. So before we get into the episode, as ever, the podcast is sponsored by Metal Blade Records, the home of Primordial. So you can go to www.metalblade.indiemerch.com, INDIE, metalblade.indiemerch.com, and you can use the code AA2024, and then you type 10% off, and you can get 10% off your order. It is the home of Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits, Cannibal Corpse, Fate's Warning, Merciful Fate, Primordial, tons and tons of bands, Sirith Ungol. The list is endless. Times are tough, and that 10% off can mean an awful lot. And this is the only metal label that is still independent. Right then, now back to the episode. Slowly but surely, we are also announcing gigs with Primordial. There's quite a few festivals. Off the top of my head, there is Grasspop, there is Wolfside Festival in Germany, there's Rhythmino Rocks in Crete, Rockwave Festival in Greece, all sorts of things. So go and follow Primordial_official on Instagram to get more updates about that kind of thing. So let's take a look at this, and I will try and revisit my addled memory. I shall try and revisit some of the things that I wrote at the time and comment on them now. And this was a strange tour. Like I said, I pushed very hard for something to happen after we made the album Journey's End. It turns out it's from 1999, this tour diary. So another century, we shall say. And it was, I think people don't really understand what Ryanair, the wonderful Ryanair, Irish company, don't you know, the wonderful Ryanair did for breaking I suppose, the cabal. Is that the right word? Well, they broke open the airline industry. If you've always grown up with the idea that you can go onto Ryanair and go, oh wow, I could fly to Agadir today. Back in the 80s and the early 90s, you had to go into a travel agent. They had to book things. And the idea of being able to take a budget flight to Jordan in Petra, which, let's be honest, I could go onto Ryanair. You could do it also right now and go. And this is not an ad read for Ryanair, but you could go on and you could, off-season, book a cheap flight somewhere for 9 or 10 or 20 euro. I've mentioned them now and again on the podcast before. Also, this famous festival that happened in Germany, in Heidelberg, I think, which Primordial was supposed to play, and we got Deutschmarks in an envelope, and still wasn't enough to buy the flights. This might have been for the first album, 1995, perhaps. And on the bill were In Flames, Dissection, Bethlehem, and in Gorgoroth, maybe? I'm not really too sure. Actually, Gorgoroth, I don't think were on the bill. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the point is that things like this were almost unthinkable until Ryanair came along and broke the monopoly of the traditional airlines. And so they opened up an awful lot of routes, especially for bands to be able to go over and play. And if I'm not incorrect, this is sort of how the idea of going to Portugal began. Our friend Dave was living there, and we were in touch with Jose from Sacred Sin, who, if I'm not incorrect, were supposed to play the gig of Primordial, Gorgoroth and Cradle of Filth in London at the Astoria, where we met them first in 94 or 95. But I don't know what happened. The sound check went on too long and Sacred Sin were cut from the bill. I remember them being there with their guitars and stuff. Anyway, we, I think, made friends with them. And the idea was hatched that we would go to Portugal to play for a week. And we had done a tour, I think, in 95 with Sai from Japan and Hakate Enthroned also. I think I've discussed this 200 and something odd episodes ago in the podcast. And this was maybe, I suppose it was the second maybe ever short tour that we did. And I seem to remember somehow we brought Kieran's head of his amp on the plane and stuff. All pretty naive stuff. But somehow we pulled together. I scoured the internet in internet cafes and magazines looking for addresses in Portugal to send flyers to, paper flyers, tons of them. And, kind of awful flyers that you would make as a kid. Not cool ones, as in knowingly cool fanzine looking flyers, just really awful things, but photocopied hundreds and hundreds of them and sent them out. And here we go. Let's have a listen. A little. Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I wonder if I could do that. Actually, sample my own voice from an interview in the 90s and do it in, another voice. Oh, AI overlords, please make that possible. So, Saturday the 4th of December. Okay, yeah. I should have known. I had written dates on it. I haven't even looked at it. Staying awake hadn't seemed like such a bad idea at the time, with my internal clock so fucked up that it would not have mattered had I tried anyway. I think at this time I was really living proper vampire hours. I was probably going to sleep between 4 and 7 or 8 in the morning and sleeping until noon to 2 or 3 or 4. I did that for years in my 20s, proper interview with the vampire hours. Then you'd get up and you'd put on your frilly pirate shirt and your dress coat and paint under your eyes. So I was on vampire time. After all, the first gig was only 30 kilometers from Lisbon, ? Not sure who I'm questioning there, but anyway. So obviously what I've done is gone straight to the airport after having no sleep, which, you can brush that off when you're in your 20s. Now that's a hard thing to start off a tour with no sleep. Many times these days, I kind of refuse to do the red-eye flights. I'll go the night before and just get a hotel on my own, off my own bat, as they say. Because when you're starting off, the adrenaline of having to play a gig will carry you over the line if you haven't been sleeping. But it's damn hard as you get older. Some 5 hours into the car journey to the first gig, things had altered somewhat. So it was 30 kilometres from Porto, not Lisbon. I've mixed up the cities, Porto and Lisbon. I mean, I can see why I did that. They look very similar. Porto, Lisbon. And one quick cursory glance at a map of Portugal will tell you that they are quite a distance. Both beautiful cities as well. You should try and take a break there if you somehow can. However, as members of the brave and mighty Order of Metal, we battled on. Yeah, I'm probably pretty sure this time I was wearing a Manowar shirt constantly and only listening to things like Omen and Hellstar and Liege Lord and Virgin Steel. So there's probably going to be quite some references to loincloths and that kind of thing. Through the fields of furniture stores and furniture stores. Yeah, the first gig is in Paco Ferreira. Excuse my butchering of the names, is the furniture store homeland of Portugal. So obviously it stands to reason that an unknown Irish band, self-deprecating. Sure, who'd come and see us anyway? Sure, who'd come and see us? Ah, well, you're here. Sure, you might like this song. If not, sure, go to the bar and come back and you might hear the next one. So obviously it stands to reason that an unknown Irish band would be playing their first gig there. The venue itself is like a concrete hangar or a very large garage. Yeah, I remember this. And I remember there were tons of bands, 5 or 6 bands, lots of smoke, lots and lots and lots of smoke. And it was freezing, absolutely freezing cold, replete with massive, already you can tell what a linguist I am. I've used the word cursory, replete with massive sliding iron doors. See, it's a contradiction trying to be Mr. Heavy Metal and then also, being quite the literary Oscar Wilde. These things are somewhat incongruous. Oh, see, I've done it again. Replete with massive sliding iron doors. So after a brief wander around the middle of nowhere, it dawns on us that the gig is not due to start until 12 p.m. or 1 a.m. And we were on at like 2 or 3 a.m. And this was something we were found very strange and we had to get used to. And you often have to get used to when you're in southern countries, is that things just start later. And, now Dublin is afflicted with this terrible, greedy, gigs. If you're in a rock band or you're going to see a band, it will be over by 10:15. The gig will start at 6:30 or 7, run like clockwork, and then most venues will be like, please now fuck off because we have to throw everyone out who might be drinking, etc., for our weekly club, dance club, or whatever kind of club. And very often venues will kick out 300 or 400, maybe 500 drinking rock or metal fans to be replaced by 50 people. All because they have in-house booking agents mostly in the venues, and that's their personal thing, a club. It's fucked because what it means is it's so anti-scene, if that means anything to you. You can never unwind and just have a night and enjoy music and then afterwards have a drink and meet people. It's like you're in, you're out, fuck off. It's just you're kind of treated like cattle, and it's I see it the same in Northern Ireland. It's similar in Scotland sometimes, and in England. It's just greed on the behalf of promoters who want 2 sets of crowds in. I digress as is my wont. But yeah, so bear in mind I've had absolutely no sleep, but bear in mind I'm also 25 years old, so take it on the chin. This is apparently the custom here. With our cheery outlook on life, well, yeah, this is my attempt at humour, literary humour. We're, of course, I suppose this is also, we're, of course, convinced that no one will turn up here in furniture country. Yeah, I do remember that there was just loads and loads of furniture stores in a row. It always struck me as very odd that you would have an area where, shops selling certain things would gather. The electronics area, the furniture area. Surely it's better to have an area to not put your shop beside all the other shops selling the same things, or is that just dumb? Anyway, we're of course convinced that no one will turn up here in furniture country. Mask of Innocence. Yeah, Mask of Innocence were a Portuguese band in the late 90s. They were kind of playing sort of goth rock, which I think was pretty sort of ahead of its time. It was quite influenced by Nephilim and Sisters of Mercy. I imagine it would actually do better now. I think the song was called Dead Man Shadow or Shadow Man or something. I must actually go and look it up on YouTube, see if it's up there. But shout out to Mask of Innocence. Yeah, they were doing something that was kind of different then. Are the plucky younger individuals who've drawn the shortest straw to drive us around, and they work their way tentatively through their set of gothic metal. Yeah, the sound is horrible. Okay. Sacred Sin start, as is befitting Sacred Sin, turn out to be local heroes wherever we are. Yeah, this was the kind of thing, Sacred Sin, where you had bands like Decade and Sacred Sin, Filigranti, Infernalium, or however you called them, and there was a bunch of Portuguese bands underneath the kind of the Moonspell banner. It was quite a good healthy scene back then. There was quite a few bands. I can't remember too many of the other names. I probably will in the course of this, this time traveling moment we are both experiencing. But the gig itself was not a bad one by all accounts. In the end, some 190 people. That's so mildly on the spectrum. I didn't say 200. I didn't say 150. 190. Sometimes when Primordial is playing a gig and there isn't a part that I'm singing for ages, I I count the amount of people deep in the crowd by the width and the breadth, and I make an estimate of how many people are there, and then I'll always go to the promoter. 408 people. 298 people, that kind of thing. I'm very good at estimating or guesstimating crowds, and can often be only a few, different. Sometimes I've actually been exactly on the money. So bear in mind, local promoters, if you're trying to rip Primordial off, that I've counted the crowd from the stage. Anyway, so 180 people work their way past the iron doors and stand in the freezing cold and watch 4 Irish lads lay waste to the furniture homeland of Portugal. Laying waste. Not bad is the verdict, however. We soon realised that we were supposed to sleep on the concrete stage of the tomb. Yeah, I do remember this, all right. That there was nowhere to change and you just had wet clothes, and they were like, hey, we're just going to stay parked outside all night. We're going to sit in the car. You just have to sit on the stage. Realised the good-natured Portuguese have a habit of standing around doing nothing, as if waiting for some sign from the Dark Lord himself to spur them into action. Yeah, that's... I presume there's going to be some vaguely xenophobic comments throughout my reading of this diary. Forgive my young self. It's all a bit weird and quite like Ireland. In fact, even more relaxed. Okay, so what I'm trying to say there is that I think in southern countries sometimes there's a lot of conversation before something actually happens. I think this is something to do with language. My sense is, and this is actual theory, is that in hot countries, language is developed in such a way that people were willing to say more in order to do less. They seem more fundamentally democratic, I suppose. It wouldn't be the first time you've played in a southern country and 8 people are standing around arguing about how to fix the sound desk, whereas in Finland that would be half a sentence and the person in charge, that's their job. For cold countries, standing around, everyone debating just isn't practical. So I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. In the end, we go to a hotel, and I seem to remember it was like 5 or 6 or 7 in the morning, and it's the end to a strange and very long day. Well, Sunday, the 5th of December. Stands to reason the 5th, 5 hours rest. Okay, right, yeah, I'm 555, I'm complaining about things. Could be worse, however, if we had slept in the tomb, although considerably more black metal. Coruña. You see, Coruña is the far, far north of Spain, and unfortunately is the only Spanish state we have. However, I quickly learned that these people do not like to be called Spanish at all, but Galician. Yeah, and then in brackets, spell, ? The internal politics of Spain are full of twists and turns. Well, you could say that again. And not for the first time tonight, I hear utterances about the IRA, who seem to be some form of role model for ETA. Okay, so I've briefly stepped my toe into Spanish politics. Yeah, Galicia, I suppose, am I even really going to try and explain Spanish politics briefly? No, let's steer clear of that kind of stuff. ETA were an independence movement in Spain. And I mentioned the IRA. A lot of countries, when you travel the world with an Irish passport, especially countries who've dealt with colonialism or authoritarianism or, have dealt with fascism, such as Franco in Spain, or Salazar, crypto-fascism, whatever you want to call it, as maybe you don't know him, Portuguese dictator. long surviving Portuguese dictator, 40, 50 years, maybe 40 years or something, 38 maybe. He survived. And an awful lot of people in an awful lot of countries around the world see Ireland as a kind of a role model. The prime mover, shall we say, when it comes to resisting colonialism and authoritarianism. And you can go back to last week's podcast to my clumsy or my observation of Kneecap and some of the things they're singing about. Many foreign countries love this about Ireland, and they do romanticize it a lot. So I think at this particular gig, I remember it was a cool metal club, a small little metal club, and yeah, there was a lot of people wanted to talk to us about Irish independence and about the IRA and about terrorism and stuff. However, we're here to play the club Ragnarok. Rock as in, hey, you rock, not Ragnarök. The small, gloomy metal bar. Gloomy, I seem to remember it was better than gloomy, but with a considerable amount of character. Okay, there you go. A small, let me see, the support band are called Rotten Animals and grind and blast in quite professional fashion, despite all looking about 17. I mean, this from a man who was only 23 or 24 at the time. And they finished with a Terrorizer cover. I mean, listen, that's a way to win me over, finishing with a Terrorizer cover. I wonder, was it Corporation Pull In? A considerably pleasant surprise. Coruña was like the gigs we played years ago in Dublin, when there was still, hang on, what am I saying here? In Dublin, when there still was a few cheap pubs to play that would let you do your own thing and weren't all massive tourist traps like now. Wow, okay, so I'm giving out about the same thing as I give out about now 25 years ago. No interest in Irish culture at all. Sorry, ranting again. Yeah, I mean, look, so you can see that my habits were formed even back then. The gig was okay, hot as hell, and I'm pretty sure that no one knew what we were doing. Well, nearly all. Not too bad, however, at all. Wow. Sterling Bonds. It's a good name for a private detective, isn't it? Sterling Bond. I suppose Bond, yeah, but that's where I got that from. Are being well and truly formed between all the bands, and with a huge journey throughout the night to Beja. For one, I have plenty of food for thought. I'm not sure what that means. It's a bit cryptic. Monday, the 6th of December. Beja. And Beja is an interesting town. I think the local council is communist, and I think it was at the heart of some of the resistance to Salazar. As I said, this crypto-fascist Portuguese dictator. If I'm not incorrect, it's a town where many of the rebels, anti-fascist resistance came from. And we returned there with Dread Sovereign to play there a couple of years ago. We played a great festival there with Wolf Brigade and a whole bunch of other bands. Anyway, Beja is situated in the south of Portugal, and watching the landscape change as the sun came up over the course of our 10-hour journey from mountainous green, haphazard northern regions to the flatter, more arid and desert-like south is an interesting experience. Beja, much to all our surprises, is a communist town. The local council is communist, and it wouldn't be the first time I see red fists and hammer and sickles painted on walls. Even more surprising is that the organiser of this gig is the head of the Cultural Studies Department at Beja University. Things get more bizarre. Yeah, I remember this distinctly, and it was in a university kind of hall, and there were strange steps down from the stage, like marble steps, and the crowd was kind of like really below you, and you sort of stepped down into the crowd. I remember the gig being pretty good. Maybe 100 people were there. And they treated us really well, took us out for like really cool local food and stuff. But it's clear that because we were Irish, the local sort of left-wing council student body, they thought that this would make sense to put in their celebration, their arts weekend. And why not? Things get more bizarre. The venue itself is the main concert hall at the university. Pristine backline, supplied dinner hotel. Ireland, what is wrong with you? I ask, ? I can just imagine us trying to do this in UCD or DCU. They're Irish colleges. Or any college in Ireland. I mean, that's a bit, daft to say, because back in the 90s, you could have had a gig in UCD if you were Therapy or Curb Dog or something. Bands did used to play in the DIT in the 90s. I presume that doesn't happen anymore because students aren't interested in that kind of thing, but maybe it does. I can just imagine us trying to do this in UCD or DCU or any college in Ireland. Lads, fuck off, will ya? Would probably be the response. In fact, not probably, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I still... I can read between the lines. Is the idea that the early metal scene in the 90s and bands like Primordial never really got any recognition from the state at all, or never were able to play some of the things we saw, as I said, bands like Therapy able to do. But maybe we just didn't try, I don't know. Still rather shocked at how well we are being treated. Like a real band, ? Like a real boy, ? We, of course, expect no one to turn up to even things out, but slowly and surely some 150 people make their way in. Mask of Innocents are getting the hang of things, and their improvement is very noticeable. Sacred Sin also are attempting to break in a new drummer, and he shows signs of getting the hang of things by now. Yeah, I remember this guy. He was a pretty good drummer. The sound on stage is actually quite bad, and we probably make the most of this particular gig. Still, we end up playing some 75 minutes, as ends up being the par. Not a bad one either. Okay. Now, you have to take my giving out about the sound with a pinch of salt, because there's no doubt about that I wouldn't have had a clue how to ask for anything. I think our early gigs in the 90s, we didn't even really know what monitors were. So me complaining about the sound, it's no doubt half of it is our fault, if not more. Everything is closed in Beja, so we retire to our hotel. We retire to the hotel. Do you understand, darling? We retire. At the Novelty, ? Tuesday, the 7th of December. I do remember... Yeah, another very long journey back up the north to Leiria. I do remember this being a kind of standout thing, in that it looked as if somebody just threw darts at a map of Portugal and sent us wherever. It didn't. The way things lined up didn't really make sense. Although the journey was eased with the new Nevermore album and a bit of jukebox jury. Nevermore. I do love Nevermore, especially those Politics of Ecstasy, that kind of era, Dreaming Neon Black. What a dark band they were, and it's really amazing to think that they were a mainstream metal band and they were that dark and aggressive. I saw them somewhere in the early 2000s and they were still one of the best bands I saw. So aggressive, like proper aggressive, and more brutal in their own way than most death metal bands of the time. And Warrell yeah, I mean, what can you say about Warrell? Incredible vocals, difficult lyrics, dark stuff, and they're coming back now. Whoever is going to sing in that band has some very big shoes to fill, I'll say that. Anyway, bit of a Nevermore rant there, but yeah, Nevermore, all the way. And last few months I've been listening a lot back to them. Leiria turns out to be the hall of the local football team, or rather the local town hall. Yet again, I imagine the same kind of thing being attempted in Ireland. And the hassles and brick walls we would encounter. Yeah, it would be hard to go to something that was owned by Civic Society in Ireland and go, hey, can we just play in the local town hall? We should be able to. We pay taxes, hey? Or, well, some of us do. Leiria turns out to be a very enthusiastic crowd indeed. Some 150 people, perhaps. And again, we play a long set, including several new songs. New songs, wow. Songs no one's heard yet, too. However, things are starting to take a toll on my voice. Nowhere has any central heating. Uh-oh. So singing 75 minutes in cold rooms subsequently means that upon waking up on the stage, carpeted I may add, I don't know why I would put that in, but by the way, it has a carpet. Leiria, I have not quite lost my voice, but about 30% of it. Yeah, this would be a problem back then, when you were a kid. When you didn't really know what you're doing, and you had to ration your socializing. You had to ration your amount of talking and limit yourself. Drink water, not just drinking beer. And you had to kind of, the idea of sleeping on a cold stage in wet stage clothes and then waking up wondering where your voice went after spending, standing around until 5 a.m. in the cold talking to people about Necrovore or Incubus or something or other. That's how you lose your voice. Very often it's from one of the things that you really will lose your voice at is shouting over the music in bars after a gig. You just have to retire. Anyway, so what am I talking about here? Yeah, in Leiria, I have not quite lost my voice, but about 30% of it. However, Leiria was definitely a highlight, and we're quite surprised at how many people knew what we were doing. Okay. Also, for anyone interested in trivia, the only date I wore paint on. Paint on. I'm not sure what that means there. There was a period around 99. I think this might have been the period, 98, where for a couple of gigs I didn't wear corpse paint. I think that's what I mean by this. I'm not quite exactly too sure why, because I was wearing it in the early 90s. Let's say from 93, maybe even late 92 on. And then I think there was a period with Primordial between about 94, 5 and 98 where we just didn't play really any gigs. We played like one a year. I was still wearing corpse paint until maybe Journey's End came out. And then there was a couple of gigs, maybe these were included in it, where I just didn't. Maybe just some black under the eyes. And then it came back in 99 since then. Anyway, Wednesday, the 8th of December. This was always going to be the hard one. Playing in the back room of a disco, or rather a hangar. Yeah, I remember this. In the middle of absolute nowhere. Everything started late. We arrived late. There was nowhere to eat. The bad feeling about this particular gig was seemingly justified. At about 4 a.m, we had a decidedly Spinal Tap moment, sitting in the back of the Jeep, we were in a Jeep, still not having played, all practically asleep, the rain drizzling down in the forest in the back arse of nowhere in another country. So after dragging ourselves up to see what was happening, we found the doors into the venue shut. Yeah, I remember this. Big iron doors, and they were just shut. And it was like 4:15 in the morning and we hadn't played. We kicked the door. Nothing happened. So after a brief door kicking session, it's a, good name for a song. There we were all ready for a Hello Cleveland. That's a Spinal Tap reference. Making our four metal warriors that we are through a pact. Metal warriors, yeah. Every one of us has heard the call. Bow, bow, bow. Yeah, again, another Crypto Man of War reference. We make our way through a packed disco dance floor, all boogieing. Yes, 70s dad. To Ricky Martin on our way to the back room to play at 4:30 a.m. Yes, we are Spinal Tap. The gig was, from my point of view, the worst. There was maybe 60 people standing around, some very disgruntled goths who did not look impressed at our unprofessionality. Personally, I couldn't really sing, and with one eye on the gig in Lisbon, the following night I mumbled and croaked my way through the set. Welcome to our late night Portuguese rehearsal was really the maxim here in Viseu. Apologies to anyone who was there in Viseu. I'm apologising through the website. Primordial karaoke. Actually, we played well, but the circumstances were so bizarre, it was also impossible to feel like a real gig. I remember this. We had to go round to the front of the disco and say, can we please come in? We're playing a gig upstairs in the back, and walk through all of the people who were dancing, with, kind of leather pants on and bullets, I imagine, and go to a tiny room in the back. And at 4 a.m, and there was I think we interrupted a goth club, which was, people were having fun listening to Sisters of Mercy, and they had to watch some Irish metal band in the corner, and they were just like not impressed with this. Dark Tales, the gothic rock band of Jose from Sacred Sin, were playing instead of Sacred Sin, and their brand of Catatonia, Nephilim, Old U2 had an instant and pleasing effect on the senses. What difference does it fucking make, indeed? Is that a Smiths reference? Wow. There you go. Take that. A Smiths reference. Anyway, Thursday the 9th of December. Lisbon is a huge, sprawling city. At times beautiful, at times very dirty looking. Okay, more casual xenophobia. Maybe to the outsider appears so, but it seemed to have character in abundance, and within areas beautiful as Sintra. Yeah, that's where we got this, Duskfall at Sintra line for heathen tribes, I think. With all its Moorish castles right on its doorstep, you really get the impression that the city had seen many things. Well, I suppose it did. Lisbon definitely has a character all of its own. Do I sound like a tourist brochure? ? Apologies. Lisbon promised to be the gig. Dark Tales and the rapidly improving Mask of Innocence on home turf. A place where we perhaps were more well known than any of the other gigs. I mean, you presume that you are in a major city. However, I was concerned with nursing my voice. Hot lemon, honey and whiskey. Oh yeah. I was telling my friend Kat from Thronehammer the secret to recovered vocals, and that is take a pint glass, bourbon, 1/4 of bourbon, cloves, grind your garlic. Well, no, maybe not garlic, ginger. Oh, actually, grind garlic is good as well, but don't put that in there. Grind up some ginger. Then you take some Manuka honey. Then you take lemsip. Then you take lemon tea bags, and then you add hot water and mix that all up and drink 3 or 4 of them. So you get a bit pissed and it helps the voice. Then stay fucking quiet all day and then hum before the gig. And if you can hum, which means, and it isn't going, breaking up, your voice is, you can do it. You can do it. All right, anyway, what am I talking about? However, considered with nursing my voice, hot lemon, blah, 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 seemed to work, although I wonder how much was psychological. Well, this is it. Frank from Morning Beloved always said to me, your problem, Avril, is that you worry too much. And if you worry you're going to lose your voice, you will lose your voice. Sorry, Frank, for that terrible impression. Hot lemon, honey and whiskey. However, it seemed to work. When all is said and done, Lisbon was one of the best gigs we've ever played. The crowd was awesome. The sound was spot on. And not much really could have been better. And I think the photo of this was used in one of the albums. It's moments like this where, to sound cliche, they're putting up with whatever shit life throws at you. Oh, the shit that life threw at us. Or the general bullshit if the music industry seems worth it. Yeah, take that, music industry. There we were, 4 Irish guys having stuck at it through all these years, well, all 8 of them, all 8 years, and playing some foreign city with people singing our own songs back at us. Forgive me if I sound like a Miss World contestant, spoken like a young Liberace. But that is the magical thing that no one can touch. No one can touch it. You can't touch this. Everything seems worth it. Thank you, Lisbon. Wow, gushing. Friday the 10th of December. Subsequently, this was always going to be a little, one of a little anticlimax. Maybe a nice come down would be a better way to put it. Figueira de Foz, or rather the Nictos bar in the middle of nowhere also. Well, to us, it appeared so, another pub gig. What am I talking about? This is such terrible English. As soon as I had commandeered the stereo, the perfect wind down had begun. A metal bar in the middle of nowhere, you better believe it, replete with Amorphous, Moonspell, Halloween and Cradle of Filth, flags and posters and metal memorabilia ever. Yeah, I remember we spent most of the time listening to Schizophrenia by Sepultura. Anyone noticed on Schizophrenia, it starts with the intro riff, the drums come in, and then it always goes and the riff goes on its own, and then the drums come back in. Almost every riff. Anyway, some 80 or 90 people showed up to the bar, and although not as high octane as the night before, yeah, we were high octane. Primordial was always known for being high octane. It was quite enjoyable indeed. However, the nightclub we went to after waste time, seeing as we had nowhere to stay, was a further nail in the bizarre coffin. Yeah, we were flying out that morning. We just decided to stay out. 7 a.m. came and time to eat breakfast back to Lisbon. I remember that nightclub, yeah. They were playing some sort of weird trancey goth music, and everybody was kind of dancing in a big circle, moving round and round and round, and there was only one light above the dance floor, one strobe, and it was mesmerising, crazy looking. Back to Lisbon. So the following day was free. Oh no, I'm mixing things up here. So the following day was free. So after getting up, we sampled Lisbon's metal nightlife, and it must be said, goth night life until the early morning. Sorry, I can't speak today. And why not? That's actually what I'm talking about. So 8 days in Portugal came to an end, and overall we left with plenty of food for thought, some great memories and some friendships. Still friends with Jose from Sacred Sin and speak to him quite often, you know. That I have a feeling will last a very long time. And then I have my little thanks list to the people that helped make it possible. There you go. 1999, so 26 years ago, we did an 8-day tour of Portugal, and it's only just now that I've literally read that tour diary. So thank you, Collie, for sending me that tour diary. And that's the end of Agitators Anonymous for this week. A tour diary from another century, from a young vampire with flowing ginger locks. No doubt I had my school shooter leather trench coat on and leather pants 24/7. There you go. Agitators Anonymous. See you next week.